Hello, Los Angeles. It is Saturday, like usual. And right now we're heading up Grand Avenue to the Regional Connector station. Down there is the LA Public Library. So today we're going to take a trip to East LA. Well, at least a place in Los Angeles that used to be called East LA is now more so referred to as Northeast LA. Decisively on the east side, it was once the easternmost part of Los Angeles. Today we're going to check out one of LA's first suburbs. So please wish me luck, because clearly it's been a while since I've been out in the sun, in the elements. And this has been one of the hotter weeks we've had all year, so not too hot, mid-80s. I'm not going to dwell on the weather, but if you see me turning beet red or huffing and puffing, it's because I'm just out of shape.
Hey man, nice shirt.
All right, thanks man. So almost coincidentally, almost by design, I get to use the new Regional Connector to be the jumping off point for all these cool little micro excursions. I do have to wonder how many people came here by rail versus how many people drove here. So the people saying that the train station is too far back, it's in the middle of nowhere, I just have to disagree with you. It's flat level, it's clean, it's safe. The walk to the station is inconsequential in my opinion. But I will agree, in this direction it is kind of a no man's land because you have existing, I believe those are condos. That's actually one of the earliest, probably the earliest residential development in downtown LA right here. That was in the 60s. And people really didn't start moving to downtown LA en masse until at least the late 90s, early 2000s. So those were incredibly way ahead of their time.
Thank you.
So one thing I don't know what people are tripping about is the elevators instead of escalators. I mean, sure, in the future it could be a bad thing if it gets messed up, but it's not messed up yet. So are you hoping it gets messed up so you'll be right? Aw, darn it. We got 11:14, start of our trip, and we have to wait 11 minutes for our train to get here. Well, it's quiet, but I won't say it's creepy.
Now arriving, Little Tokyo Arts District Station on First between Alameda and Central. Exit here for Japanese American National Museum. This is the Metro E Line train.
report smoking and illegal rush on our system, and we are stepping up enforcement.
So it's just my preference that I like to break up my trips if I can. So I could have taken this, I could have just waited at the original stop and waited for the next train, but kind of the act of getting off and getting back on, you just have to pay attention and make sure you don't miss your train. Or if you do miss your train, maybe make the best of it and find something to do. This is our train. They still kind of do this weird step thump before the end of the stations. I don't know how that works. I just know on a busy train when it stops and goes and stops and goes. And these trains are notorious for that. It's absolutely obnoxious.
The next stop is
Chinatown Station.
This is one of my favorite stretches of the Metro Rail because it's elevated. I hate that they wrap this car with this stupid advertisements.
now arriving.
Chinatown Station.
Alright, well this is our stop. Welcome to Chinatown. And I have a fondness for this station because it's very utilitarian. It looks like a freeway underpass. But one thing contractors in California know how to do is build freeway overpasses. So it seems like, I might be wrong, it seems like this is kind of a cheap way of throwing up these stations. I'd love to see these on Washington. I'd love to see an elevated station like this in many different places. You can see the kind of half-hearted theming. But you know, it kind of looks like a Chinatown station. But yeah, I wish structures like this existed in many more places, if you know what I mean. So if you're remotely familiar with the Union Station area, Philippe's is just down there, and the jail is just over there, Twin Towers. But yeah, these elevated train lines aren't that bad nowadays. And you get great views. And sometimes when you're on your way to work in the morning and it's kind of, you're going through the everyday things, sometimes a beautiful sunrise or on the way home a beautiful sunset from one of those elevated structures kind of perks your mood a little bit. At least it does mine. It's kind of sad to see all these vacant storefronts. I guess it's just a sign of the times. This part of town is pretty trippy. There are all sorts of parking lots and sparse development. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this reminds me a little bit of some neighborhoods to the north of San Diego. Every neighborhood in LA kind of gives off its own different vibe. LA can be 50 different cities, depending on the time of the year, time of day, etc. There we go. Now I got some good old people waiting in line. So I make a right turn. Broadway, the heart of Chinatown. All right, good. I'm glad to see that there's lots of people out and about. It seems really hot, but it's not. It's only 80 something right now. We're just all deconditioned.
That's what I'm saying. He didn't eat all that. This is not. He could have. I think he didn't think. I think he didn't know he could just scrape it. No, he said he Which way?
So very cool.
Yeah, hold on.
I will most certainly do a separate Chinatown video, so I don't want to get bogged down because there's a lot to go over. So there's something going up here. I don't quite know, hadn't heard about this, but I guess it's nice. It's modern, and it's right next to the metro. So this is not a bad place to do a metro bike. There's not a whole lot of bike lanes, but the traffic around here is pretty calm. As you can hear, it's very quiet and peaceful around here. So as we look towards the north, we see the LA State Historic Park, or the Cornfield. It goes by several names, but it's not really quite in the vernacular of Los Angeles. You still have a hard time explaining to people what park that is. It's just not that popular yet. And behind, if you look behind the metro station, that's where Dodger Stadium is. So there's a controversial project involving a gondola that I believe goes through this neighborhood. So Union Station is this way, over behind all these school buses. So off in the distance there, you'll see this sharp edge. That's the Dodger Stadium parking lot. So the plan is to have a little gondola thing go from Union Station, which we just passed through. I couldn't quite place myself if I lived around here, would I like a gondola flying over my head? I can't really say one way or the other. So a really unknown area around here, you have some very sparse industrial buildings. These guys were under construction when I did my first video, oh God, like 4 years ago. They were under construction. Let's walk past them and see. So I'll bet that building's occupied, and I'll bet you it's deceptively chic in there. Storage facility. More storage. Maybe we should call this the storage district. What do we got here? Aha, seafood distribution. You want to know what most of the industrial buildings, or a significant amount of the industrial buildings in and around Los Angeles are shipping and logistics. So before these were here, there was not people parking their Porsches, their Cadillacs and Mercedes. So this was just an absolute dead zone. It's not bustling yet, but there are people milling about. And you can see over there, there's room for more development. A lot of room, actually. See, if this was 1996, they'd put an Office Depot there or something archaic. But whatever is going to be built in this neighborhood will surely be very high density. I know there's all kinds of plans, but this neighborhood needs to get a good name that everyone agrees on, though. It's almost like a northern tentacle of the Arts District. Check this out, railroad spur. The rail cars would pull right up to the loading dock. Imagine a country before trucks. That's why there's so many rail lines everywhere. And they were all ripped out because it was easier to deliver things by truck.
But I remember my professor, my teacher.
So we got old school restaurant supplies. Oh look, a brewery. It's kind of too early to start drinking. It's a little too hot. But it is nice to have a place to cool off and have a beer while you're walking around aimlessly. And in my case, talking to yourself. You can feel free to bring friends and talk to them. Or hell, you could even talk to yourself. This place has been here for quite a while, Nick's Cafe. So this was put in years ago.
This has the sauce. Oh, thank you.
It's been a while since I've been there, but it's clearly popular. Used to be good, and I hope it still is. Across the street here is the park. And it's an interesting park because there was a time where, if you see down there is Alameda Street. So if you look at a map or even look at a railroad map, Alameda Street goes north to south straight up. So from the ports to this point, with here's where it started to curve, but the tracks that currently hold the A line that used to hold the gold line, originally, imagine this, from here down Alameda. So the original connection from LA to the rest of the country was via Sacramento, and it went over the mountains, and it wasn't until a few years later that the railroads arrived over the Cajon Pass. So because this was such a logistics hub at the time, apparently, as lore says, apparently some of the boxcars would leak seeds onto the ground, and apparently the corn is what stuck out. So this was called the cornfield. Just basically a rail terminal junction. Up there is Radio Hill in Elysian Park. You can walk up there. The views are pretty nice, if I recall. I took my electric scooter up there and it was a lot of fun. So over there in the distance yonder is the Zanja Madre, the original brick pipeline that brought water from the LA River, which is just over there, to the city of Los Angeles. So it looks like that's an actual section that's kind of cordoned off and preserved, so that's pretty cool. So this park has a wonderful walking trail, jogging trail. This bridge doesn't really do anything, but it does give you a wonderful vantage point. So it looks like they got some native plants in this area. This park is pretty cool. I think it's highly underrated. The only thing that's missing is in about 15 years, when these trees are matured and grown up, it will be nice to have all that shade. So if this video is still around in the future, it's been open for a few years, but the trees are growing, but not fast enough to my liking. I actually think that's really cool too. I love the sound of the light rail trains going through. It's peaceful. So these tracks fly over the LA River on a historical line that used to be a major rail point of entry to Los Angeles, which was at the time the most popular way to arrive here. But the original rail depot, passenger depot, should be around here somewhere. But it's weird, you see this neighborhood was never really built up, it was just some scattered warehouses and stuff. It was because it packed up and left pretty quickly, it moved south. Kind of on the edge of where today's Skid Row is. That was where the more grand rail depots were. If you see this narrow strip of land That's Broadway up there. And then over here is Spring Street. And these two streets don't connect. So if you live up there and you want to go down here, you're kind of SOL. You got a long walk. So I believe that one of the plans is to get entry into this park from up there via private development. So unfortunately the porta potties were zip tied shut, so I assume that that means that we have regular bathroom facilities over here. All right, the restrooms were surprisingly clean. What a beautiful park. So I might have got a little bit of a contact high walking through this park because there's this really cool energy here that's very peaceful and tranquil. And there's a lot of people smoking weed. But they're all off in their own little pods, not bothering anyone. So if it was the 1870s and we were arriving in Los Angeles, we probably would have got here via Sacramento and we would have arrived right here. But back then, LA wasn't a big city. It didn't become a big city until the 1890s when land speculation ran its course. But the Metro A line connection to this track is not a legacy one because this used to be the route of the Southwest Chief, which was a long distance train to Chicago. All right, it's time for us to leave the beauty, the nature, and the shade and head off into the baking sun as we continue the journey to Lincoln Heights. All right, so the tracks are running to the north and we're walking parallel. This is North Spring Street, or it becomes North Spring Street when it hits the river. So you got your nice patch of greenery and solitude. So you notice that we're on flat land here. This is kind of the floodplain for the LA River. And the hills that are right here, starting with Dodger Stadium and Radio Hill, this is the very end of the Santa Monica Mountains. The tunnels on the 110 go through those hills. That bridge over there is the Broadway Bridge. So these bridges were built pretty substantially for the day. This would have been the main drag out of LA. You would head north on Spring Street. Super quiet around here. So like I sometimes mention in most of my videos, I am not shy to point out when there's lots of tents and encampments and homeless. But I have to say, unless I missed it, I haven't seen any campsites whatsoever. It's a beautiful historic building with no date on it. And here we are at the Spring Street Bridge. So that's the Broadway Bridge over there, which is amazingly beautiful. And those are currently used by Metrolink, and Amtrak, I believe. And across the river is the freight tracks. So early on, the LA River was doomed from the start because it was hemmed in by these tracks. So their decision was to hem in the river in this concrete channel, which was effective. So I guess they have that. So you're gonna get about the same view or a similar view here as the 6th Street Viaduct, which is probably about maybe 2 miles from here. This is a really off the radar area over here. We're kind of heading towards, or in the vicinity of, remember when those trains kept getting robbed? Those Amazon trains? Not in this area, but very close to here and adjacent. So I imagine a lot of people that kind of, you hear people in LA, I stick to the west side or I stick to the east side. And then there's the debate as to whether the east side begins at the river or if the east side begins at, I don't know, Western Fairfax? I don't know. To me, the east side is east of the river, but that's just because that's the way that it was historically referred. But there's the LA River that separates Northeast LA, Boyle Heights, East LA, and then there's a man-made river, a giant freeway, an interstate. So this gigantic junction, ooh, that's scary. I got a green and they come flying up that way. So this is this interesting junction is where the various freeways or the various surface streets that came from LA funneled all of the traffic to Pasadena into this little choke point right here. So an interesting, I didn't hit the button. So there's a lot of different major US highways that used to go through this area here. So if you're leaving central Los Angeles, this would have been the first kind of stretch of suburb that you would have encountered on your way to San Francisco. San Francisco, you took the coastal route. But Sacramento, Barstow, Route 66, Vegas, US 99, US 6. So it looks like we've entered a little bit of a commercial district. I gotta get some Gatorade soon, or something, some water. So I believe down there is warehouses. And down there is clearly residential houses. So we're now officially in Lincoln Heights. And Lincoln Heights is a little bit like, I hate to use the comparison to Williamsburg, where the freeway just kind of does a surgical scar, a rounded surgical scar. And from what I was reading just in the minutes before heading out today, was that the kind of town center area of Lincoln Heights was taken by the 5 freeway with the wrecking ball. So you can see it in the distance there. There's the 5. So this has the same kind of vibe. I would say this is like Melrose in the 101. It looks exactly like almost the same everything. With the convenient gas station. So hey, look, you got an interstate highway and a gas station. Look at how convenient that is. You see off in the distance is LAUSC Medical Center. I mean, I hate it if someone disagrees with me, but I think LAUSC Medical Center would be the perfect place to have a massive hospital and housing transitional facility. That, I mean, it's a hospital, so I mean, what better place? So that's my take on that subject for now. So the Golden State Freeway, I believe this was signed as US 99 when it was first built. It's one of those LA freeways that were already in the process of being planned and built when the federal government came in and so imagine a situation where the federal government said, hey, cities, if you raise $1 billion, we'll match it with $100 billion. Just imagine the bonanza that would take place. But back in the day, it was felt to be perfectly acceptable to be. So look, that building over there, been here 100 years. That building over there, been there probably about 100 years. And everything in between hit the wrecking ball. So the one good thing was they had the common sense to make the freeways underground, or not underground, but depressed. So here's part 2 of the commercial district. That looks like that would be a good place for a cap park, a freeway cap. If only it was that easy. Sorry about that. So we got some, I've been in there before. There's a bar. I might go in there right now. Coworker just told me and recommended this place, Moose Craft Barbecue and Tap Room. Highly recommended. He was telling me, you gotta go there. So I'm here, but I'm not gonna wait in line. But I will try it one of these days. So I love the way this little neighborhood is laid out in a grid pattern. Some nice turn of the century houses down there. And sidewalks get a good score. Pretty darn clean. So don't let people tell you that all of LA is a shithole. There's actually, most of LA is somewhere better than a shithole, but somewhere way south of what it should be. But you can't paint everything with broad strokes like that. There are many very pleasant neighborhoods in LA. Another gas station. Gas stations in the surrounding areas are usually the cheapest ones. Oh yeah, there's some encampments. There you go. Oh, dude, check out that ride. So we got some good old school retail on the ground floor. Quite a few empty storefronts, but not that many. There's still signs of life. The airliner, that's still there. I was worried about that during the pandemic. I didn't know if it was going to make it or if it has made it. So now we're going to head kind of towards the northeast. So that was Lincoln Heights, and one of these days I'm going to keep walking down there and get to Lincoln Park. And Lincoln Park, Westlake, Hollenbeck Park were all built around the same time, and they were built because someone decided to sell their land, and the best way to gain value was to add a park. So somewhere around the turn of the century they changed the name. It used to just be East LA. So you can see how it's kind of confusing, because now East LA is an unincorporated part of town that has nothing to do with the city of Los Angeles. Bungalow courts. So once upon a time, this was a major highway right here. There's all sorts of road signs directing people to all sorts of different places. It was a mess. The main routes that I know of are US 99. So if you ever go to Fresno or Modesto, Manteca, Bakersfield, you take what's now California 99. At the time it used to be US Highway 99. Like this intersection. I'm sure there's photos out there of this intersection with its multiple highways going different directions. Pasadena Avenue. So before the Figueroa Street tunnels and Arroyo Seco Parkway, that would have been the road to Pasadena. And you could have stopped at Jack in the Box on the way. Five Point Clothing. So thank you for being a douchebag. Maybe an anxiety, whatever you call it, maybe a phobia. But I don't like it when I'm walking in a crosswalk and a car is rolling because their foot's not on the brake. So what happens if someone rear ends them? So sometimes I get jumpy about that. So we're headed down this street, which is leading us on a path to San Fernando Road, being the main highway for a long time. San Fernando Road, even people probably your grandparents' age or your great-grandparents' age remember San Fernando Road as being the way out of town, basically. If you're going up to Lake Tahoe or Yosemite or something, there was enough highways to get your ass out there in your car with its bubbling radiator. Hey, look, a car just like that. That car probably has driven on some of these old highways. It's pretty nice and peaceful around here. You got some older, like 70s apartment buildings in LA don't age all that well, or maybe they've aged and ran their course. But you get that mixed in with these very old houses. These ones are wrapped in stucco and they got bars on the window and stuff, but these are very old houses. But you definitely get the feeling that you're in a historic neighborhood, at least as far as LA historic. Some more relic of maybe the late 70s, early 80s. I'm not going to start firing off the name of or the buildings with the years they were built, because I'm never really sure. I just make my best guess. It's so interesting. There's a billboard maintained and everything. Such a random place for a billboard. So this road might see a lot more people, or might become completely packed with people around the time of a Dodger game. So every Dodger game that happens, there's like a nuclear bomb that goes off where you suddenly, you're immobile. It's really difficult to traverse the area on game days. So it's not uncommon when there's some sort of traffic anomaly going on for this area to be very congested with people. I think especially with Waze, it gives people hints to take side streets. So just like many parts of LA, lots of industrial, upholstery, automotive. So we're on the cusp of Lincoln Heights meets Cypress Park. Very similar. This is, in my opinion, very similar to Cypress Park. The one thing that's kind of neat about the area is it's pretty well connected to transit. You got like 2 or 3 buses that go through downtown, and of course you got the blue line, A line, right up here. So it's crazy that all of this is a metro station right here, a nice one I might add, and there's all this. Surely it's owned and all that stuff. It's a trip. So if I was to guess, I would say that these opened up around the time that the Gold Line station opened up here. I think that was maybe 2003. And off in the distance you can see the 110 freeway. Formerly the Pasadena freeway. Now back to being the Arroyo Seco. Hey, not much, how are you? So if you use your imagination, you can see how an old-timey highway leaving the city, think of like the Grapes of Wrath. That's what my mind always goes to. If you haven't seen the Grapes of Wrath, please do so. So that's the light rail station entrance. I believe the 2 platforms are on opposite sides of the tracks, so you do have to go under the tracks to get to the other side. It's a nice station though. Long Beach. It's still kind of weird to think that, hey, I can get to Long Beach pretty quickly in rush hour traffic. I'm beating all your asses. So I think that that's going to make a little bit of a, it's going to change up the dynamic of who goes where. The Arroyo Seco Parkway, but actually that's up here. This is part of the interchange. When they built the 5 freeway, the Golden State Freeway in the late 50s, they had to connect it to the existing 110 freeway, which creates kind of an awkward but interesting interchange. There's a lot of bizarre anomalies on the freeway around here. A lot of the ramps are from the 1940s and 50s and stuff. It's crazy. All right, so if you want to go to San Diego, this is your ramp right here. Whoa, no blinker and going exceptionally fast. So I'm no fool. I learned only like half the people use their turn signal when they get on the freeway, but yeah, people around here are kind of nuts when they want to get somewhere. So be careful. And just like that, we're in Cypress Park. So there's the Arroyo Seco Parkway and the namesake, the Arroyo Seco itself, in the flesh. So this is one of the earliest urban freeway overpasses in existence. This is the birth of the American freeway here. So in a case of be careful what you ask for in life, you have to think that in the 1940s and 50s and 60s, most people in LA and Southern California would have lobbied heavily for the building of more freeways. What's really fun is how fast these cars are going on this highway that was built for people to go 45 miles an hour. I'm not going to say that I'm not guilty of it, because it is a lot of fun. At the end of this video, I'm going to put a little card thingy that takes you to my drive. I took a drive on that freeway, if that's of any interest to you. That was kind of fun. So here we are in Cypress Park. Most people around here know this area from being home to Home Depot, which is just over there. So off in the distance, over in that direction, is Interstate 5. Dodger Stadium off in the distance. Highland Park down there. We are on Figueroa. So home to Route 66 and the less sexy Route 99. And home to, relatively, comparatively speaking, affordable gasoline. And it's also got an old school IHOP, which I believe used to be a Denny's. I think I'm going to take a break and refresh in some air conditioning, so don't judge me. I'm going to go into McD's. Oh man, it's surprisingly hot out here. So that actually was pretty cool. There's a nice cold place to sit and chill, a place to use the restroom. I know McDonald's sucks, but sometimes they're useful. So let's see, luckily I've got enough battery to where I can get to really cool place and then call it a day, because I'm pretty sure, even though I'm wearing sunblock, I'm pretty sunburned. So after they dug the Figueroa Street tunnels and before the Arroyo Seco Parkway was open, This used to be the end of the freeway right here, or the end of the parkway. Figueroa Street would have turned into, I don't even know how to explain it. There's this on-ramp right here is very old. That I do know. Above us here is the mighty Golden State Freeway. The backbone of California. They installed this lovely roundabout. And I gotta admit, I kind of like it. Let's see how this Swift driver handles it. Oh, that was easy. You didn't have to go all the way around though. I mean, you should have fun while you're driving, right? Pretty sure someone's already gone up into that and smashed it to bits. I believe that's one of the art pieces all smashed up right there. Can't have nice things. The art piece is kind of cool too. This bridge closest to us was built in the 40s. And the bridge over here was built in the 30s, before the word freeway was even invented. So they both look the same, but they were built at different times. So someone's cleaning up around here. There's hardly any trash at all, which is nice. It does smell like pee, but I don't think there's much you can do about that. So yes, this is an actual walkway. In fact, people seem to be obsessed with it, so I'm glad to be here again. This is just a sidewalk, a way to get from Cypress Park to Los Angeles on foot, or to downtown. And yes, we are absolutely in the middle of the freeway. So it's an interesting sensory experience. It's so loud. There's so much going on here. There's trains, there's buses. And why not? There's drunk drivers. and criminals on the highway creates for quite a wonderful free-for-all styled experience. So if you see the highway on this little viaduct thing, that's now the 110 to the 5 North freeway off-ramp. But when the Figueroa tunnels were first built, traffic spilled out and made a quick left where it kind of entered the neighborhoods. Then in the late 1930s, the tunnel connected to Figueroa Street and became part of Route 66. Oh, what a thrill. Good thing I was paying attention. Oh my God. Well, that's a little creepy. You know, in life, there are certain risks that we take. I mean, getting in a car is dangerous in itself. If you follow the statistics, being on this sidewalk right here it feels risky. So one time I wondered, and eventually I figured out that these stairs were installed with the freeway because the tunnels used to have a sidewalk, and when they turned it into a freeway, they removed the sidewalk, and this is what resulted from it. Well, if you ever find yourself up here, watch your step. That is hella dangerous. Well, hey, thanks for joining me in my exercise routine. It felt good to get out into the sun, to sweat a little bit, and go check out some of the neighboring neighborhoods. This didn't even take very long. This was like, I think we've been out for like maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. Till the next one. Bye.
stand clear. The doors are closing. Tap with Pride every time you ride. You'll avoid penalties and fines and help to keep fares low and run better service. One tap card per rider is required.
Use su tarjeta TAP con orgullo cada vez que aborde. Usted evitará penalidades y multas y nos ayudará a mantener las tarifas bajas y ofrecer un mejor servicio. Se requiere una tarjeta TAP para cada pasajero.
The next stop is Chinatown Station.
And here's where we started.
Now arriving Chinatown Station. Please stand clear. The doors are closing.